Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Will Thomson, and I'm here to interview Dr. Kevin Stillwagon, who I found about 2 months ago on Substack, writing about the most incredible, important topics of our time. I've just done a quick check. My background, I use the GPT for a lot of stuff. So apparently you were born in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Yeah? And then you were a chiropractor.
I was. Yeah,
Excellent. And then X-ray technician
yeah,
and a flight instructor,
yeah.
which means you're good at teaching and taking risks, that sort of thing.
hmm
Excellent. That's good. Engineering sort of stuff is a huge part of being able to navigate all this crazy in this world, being able to solve problems and look for solutions.
Yeah,
Um, and then you invented an infrared scanner.
I did. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to tell me about any of that?
Well, it was used mainly for chiropractors. My father was one of the pioneers in the chiropractic profession, and he, along with one of his colleagues, had developed a device using a thermocouple, which required direct contact with the skin. And they
Okay.
would use this thermocouple along the spine, and they would look for certain signals in the graph that this instrument would produce. And basically, what they were doing was looking at what happened after a chiropractic adjustment, if they were influencing the graph in any way. And if they were, this indicated that they were changing physiology, which was a good thing.
So
So,
you'd get a readout of a graph
yeah.
telling
hmm
you what temperature or signal
It
changes.
was a temperature.
Temperature.
Yep,
Okay.
it was a temperature recording along the spine.
Right.
And so I'd always been interested in computer programming. That
Right.
was one of my first loves. And I did learn how to program in the basic language and also using machine language.
Okay.
And so I figured out a way to change the thermocouple to an infrared sensor, which doesn't require skin contact. And instead of using just one sensor, I used 12 sensors in a bar that would
Wow.
span all across the entire back. And so
Mm-hmm.
by moving these sensors along the back from the base of the spine all the way to the base of the skull,
Mm-hmm.
um, I programmed it so that it would produce a thermographic image in color. And so we used that the same way to see if making a chiropractic adjustment could change physiology. And indeed, it did change physiology. And so I was going to take it a step further and do
Mm-hmm.
some clustering analysis and look for patterns that would be similar in people that had certain conditions. But
Okay.
that all got stopped because what happened was the insurance companies had decided that the diagnostic value that came out of that machine that I developed
Mm-hmm.
was not good enough for them to reimburse. And so
Right.
that
Not cost
basically,
effective.
yeah, it basically killed our sales.
So you opposed the masks and the vaccine mandates
I did.
quite strongly.
I
The
did.
questions I'd love to know all about the history, how it started for you, Bat Soup Day in 2020. And I thought the best questions to ask were who were your top five COVID heroes? Who were the guys that you thought the famous ones that were doing the best job that you would aspire to or recommend?
Yeah, so I've been truly blessed. I got to travel to a lot of seminars and places where these people were speaking, and so I got to
Mm-hmm.
meet and sit down and have private conversations and private dinners with people like Dr. Ryan Cole, uh, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Robert and Jill Malone,
Robert
Dr.
Malone, yeah.
Dr. Peter McCullough,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Pierre Corey. Uh, Dr. Paul Thomas. And I mean, these guys were true heroes because they were on the leading edge of
Yeah.
speaking out against these things.
Yeah.
And what was fascinating is they were willing to sit down and listen to me, a chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got extensive knowledge on the immune system, as you do as well. And I've actually taught a college level course on immunity. So I understand it very well. I know exactly where the protection of infections and severe symptoms resides. And I can tell you, it's not in antibodies. It's just not there. You and I both know this.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guys that I really wanted to sit down and have a chat with is Geert Vanden Bosch.
No.
He's putting way too much emphasis on antibodies, and that's not where the magic is. The magic is in immune cells,
T
right on
cells.
that epithelial barrier. That's where the magic happens.
Dr. Rankle in 2021 immediately looked in a microscope, told everyone what the blood clots were made of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 4 years later and people are still not sure. But he told the world 4 years ago. That's not normal. That's paranormal.
Right.
Dr. Bekti in 2021 tried to tell the world. He told people hundreds of times. Nobody learned. I would immediately, because of the swine flu panic, it turned out that wasn't so bad because we had cross-reactive T cell immunity already. Yeah. So I immediately started going, it's a coronavirus. We've already got 4 coronaviruses. Look, we've got cross-reactive T cell immunity. Mm-hmm. And then I look around and the entire planet has forgotten T cells, common colds, and cross-reactive immunity. And I descended into a nightmare going, what on earth is going on? And anyone I tried to tell turned hostile on me, my friends, family. And I've been in this sci-fi supernatural horror. I found Dr. Bekti, and then there was Dr. Mark Girardot. He wrote his book, A Needle's Secret. Mm-hmm. Dr. Bekti got Dr. Burkhart to prove in pathology. Everyone ignored. Then Dr. John Campbell figured it out. Mm-hmm. Years later, Dr. Malone in 2022 said we have a mechanism of harm. It's the lymphocytes. Yeah. And then forgot. And then Brett Weinstein figured it out and then repeated it hundreds of times. Yeah, so I thought this first one, could you explain that sort of how you think, how the vaccines are injuring people?
Well, they've got the science all wrong. Mm-hmm. The science says if you inject foreign proteins into mm-hmm. your body, you're going mm-hmm. to get antibody production. That's what they absolutely said. True. You will mm-hmm. get antibody production, mm-hmm. but there are consequences of doing that because you're bypassing the epithelial barrier mm-hmm. where you normally get an infection. Yeah. When you experience, a bacteria or a virus or a toxin or whatever you want to call it, mm-hmm. the only way it's going to affect you physiologically is it has to get in you. Mm-hmm. So unless you take a needle and inject it directly into your bloodstream, which mm-hmm. people have been convinced to do, mm-hmm. it's got to come through that epithelial barrier in a natural way. And when it does that, your body gets to experience the whole thing, all parts of it, and will remember it for the rest of your life. And that's where that T cell cross-reactivity that's so important that you mentioned is coming into play. Because as you said, we've had experience with coronaviruses, which this, COVID-19, even though it was, man-made, generated in a laboratory, it's still in the coronavirus family. So there's enough of it there that we do have cross-reactivity to it that will protect you from an infection, unless you mess with that. You mess with it by ignoring the epithelial barrier, injecting something inside of your body to make an abundance of antibodies that are going to retrain those immune cells that are actually protecting you. It retrains them. It refocuses them on what you just got injected with, not what's actually circulating throughout the population. And they proved this. I mean, they did tests where they took blood from people that were taken and kept from 2016. This was before the SARS-CoV-2 virus even existed. And then they tested that blood to see if it did have cross-reactivity or the ability to recognize the SARS-CoV-2 viral proteins. And it did. Those
Yeah.
samples did have the ability to do that. And that's why about 30% of us, although we were exposed to the coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2 variant, we never got symptoms because we had that cross reactivity and we never messed with it.
The signs immediately I started going, there's half the planet's asymptomatic. Obviously, we've got pre-existing cross-reactive immunity in our throat. The science research immediately established that. And what I noticed was no one would talk about it. No one was talking about it. They were saying things like, it's novel. And I'm like, no, it's not completely novel. And they were saying maybe coronavirus will help, maybe gut biome will help. It's like, it's just the cross-reactive common cold. You have T cells in your throat. Providing you have vitamin D, they will protect you.
Yeah.
But going back, so you're right. That's how it should have all normally worked. But the entire experts said you'll get antibodies in your throat from an injection.
No.
And that was never going to work.
No.
And all the doctors forgot that. They're, oh, we never thought of that. Oh, yes, we did know that. It's like, what's wrong with you? Oh. So anyway, so then they injected it and said you'll get an immune response, which is antibodies. And they missed the immune cells. They just didn't talk. The whole world didn't talk about it. You know it. So what happens? Absolutely. So it goes in here. It doesn't stay in the arm.
It goes everywhere. It goes everywhere. It was designed that way. They cleverly encapsulated this man-made messenger RNA in lipid nanoparticles. And what most people don't understand is it's the lipid nanoparticle that they inject you with is a fat bubble that's made of normal body fats, cholesterol, and DSPC, which is a long and fancy name. It's fun to say. Disteryl phosphatidylcholine. Those are normal body fats. So they did that so that when they inject you with this stuff, your body won't reject it. And so it bypasses. It circulates through your entire body. And whatever cells it bumps up against there's going to be a natural merger because it's made of the same stuff, normal body fats. Now, inside of that larger fat bubble that's made of the normal body fats, there are smaller fat bubbles. Those are the ones that are dangerous.
Already.
Pfizer used, they're called cationic lipids, and they're cationic lipids, and they're what's called self-assembling. And the word self-assembly, that freaked a lot of people out right away because they just assumed that these things are going to self-assemble into all kinds of crazy things, and they do self-assemble in the laboratory. That's how they make them. Because they're cationic. And the mRNA is the opposite charge. It's negatively charged. So when you mix these things together, they form these very small lipid nanoparticles. And so they put the small ones in the bigger one. And so that's how this thing was designed to work. So you've got this bigger lipid nanoparticle. It literally goes everywhere, all through your body. It's going to merge with whatever cell it bumps up against It dumps that the smaller lipid nanoparticles. It dumps those directly into your cellular cytoplasm. And now the next step happens. You have to have the right pH inside of your cellular cytoplasm.
Can we focus quick to just go back? So we were told it would hijack the mechanism, make the spike proteins, and the spike proteins would present. Can we jump past that and get to that part? All over your blood vessels, in your heart, on your brain, and you've got the cells now with this foreign protein coming out. Then what happens?
The foreign protein is going to be displayed, and not only displayed on the surface, it's going to be released into the bloodstream. But before that happens, your cells that are making this are displaying little parts of these proteins on what's called MHC Yep,
One
epitopes
and
on
two.
little sites on the cells called MHC type 1
Yep.
sites. And that's where your T cells come into
Hmm.
play because they're constantly looking at those MHC1 sites, looking
Hmm.
for something that is non-self. And
Hmm.
when they find it, then they're going to send what's called an apoptotic signal to that cell to have the cell destroy itself. And it will do so in a non-inflammatory way. It's very clean. It doesn't cause a lot of inflammation. And then the cell is going to replace itself with a brand new one. But here's the key. It's
Sorry.
designed to work that way on the
Let's,
epithelial barrier with a natural infection. But when you inject this stuff into your body,
mhm.
you're
Yeah.
this is not happening on the epithelial barrier. It's
You're
happening in tissue cells.
But what you've just described there are the immune cells attacking. But the T cells are called cytotoxic because they destroy cells, damage.
That's right.
They're called killer because they
Mhm.
destroy. They're
Right.
called serial killers because they're so efficient. They can come down and just destroy every cell that is producing it. And they're
Mhm.
called the forgotten warriors of the immune system.
Yeah.
So can you explain to me why the planet apparently has forgotten them?
In the end days, there's going to be a lot of deception happening, and this is what's happening
It's
right now.
happening.
There's a
5 years.
there's a great deception that's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and people are being deceived into thinking that injecting something inside of your body is
Yeah.
going to protect you, but it's
Yeah.
doing exactly the opposite. It's not
Yeah.
protecting you, it's harming your innate uh, immune protection mechanism that you were born with. And
Yeah.
again, it's all cellular. It doesn't have anything to do with
Yeah.
these antibodies that are created
Yeah.
from what people are allowing themselves to be injected with.
The world of experts spent 99% of time talking about antibodies and 1% talking about T cells. They should have
Yeah,
been talking 99% about T cells and 1% about antibodies.
you're exactly right. And
Yeah.
again, the science has been confused on this. And
All the scientists.
yeah, and
The science is fine. The scientists are confused.
yeah, the
I'm
scientists
afraid.
are confused. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think some of this will has to do with the apparent power that they believe is in antibodies. And I'll give you a really good example. It's like if you were bitten by a rattlesnake
Mm-hmm.
and you've got rattlesnake venom coursing through your veins, unless you get antibodies or
Mm-hmm.
antitoxin,
Yeah.
that's what antitoxin is. It's an antibody. Unless
Yeah.
you get that introduced quickly, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
find yourself in a life-threatening situation,
Yeah.
and it could save your life. But here's the key, Will. Where did they get that antitoxin? They got it from another animal or another person that experienced the rattlesnake venom, the rattlesnake toxin, all of it,
Yeah.
unadulterated,
Mm-hmm.
all of it, and developed antitoxin or antibodies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's powerful and it can save your life. So that's where they
Well,
got confused. And they thought,
they,
wow, if we could just maybe inject parts of pathogenic organisms into people,
mm-hmm.
we'll get enough of an antibody or an
Mm-hmm.
antibody reaction that we'll be able to stop severe symptoms from happening. Now,
Yeah.
that sounds good on paper, but it doesn't work. And the reason
No.
is because these antibodies are going to become suboptimal and they're
Mm-hmm.
going to trick your immune cells where the real protection is.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to trick your immune cells into looking for the wrong things.
Yeah.
And that's what's dangerous. So you've lost your ability to prevent yourself from getting infected. The
Yeah.
infections are going to be easier to happen, and they'll spread more rapidly through the population. Herd immunity never gets reached. And here's the real scary part. And I don't think mainstream medicine is ready to hear this yet, but they really need to hear it. The scary part is it drives mutations. You know,
Human.
the virus is going to mutate so that it can escape immune pressure.
Mhm.
You know, viruses aren't living things. They don't
Yeah, they don't
have
think.
they don't
Yeah,
think, they don't move
they don't
on
have
their own.
agendas.
No, they
Yeah,
don't have
it's just,
agenda. So the big question is, what's mutating the viruses? We are.
yeah, the
We
selection
have
pressure.
we have specialized enzymes within our cytoplasm. They're
Mhm.
called ApoBec enzymes, and these will direct viral mutations and make them happen. And these are
Right.
the ones that are important and will propagate through the population. But it's the intelligence within our cells that are making this happen.
Mhm.
And why are they making this happen? I believe it's because whatever message is in the virus, and I'm talking about natural viruses now, not these man-made bioweapons. I'm talking
Yeah.
natural viruses that are coming from the environment, from other organisms, including bacteria, fungi, plants, other animals.
Mhm.
There are messages in there that our bodies need so that we can adapt to the environmental changes that we ourselves created. We are putting so many new toxins into the environment that our bodies have never experienced before, that
Mhm.
if we don't develop the ability to overcome those toxins, we'll perish as a species. So very simply,
Could
here's the
be.
part. And this is going to blow your mind, Will. Listen to what I'm saying here
You
very
can't blow
carefully.
my mind.
Uh,
But go ahead.
yeah. All right. So we're all born with DNA from our parents, right?
Yeah.
And that's the message to make the proteins that make us who we are.
Mhm.
But if there needs to be a radical change in proteins that are being made in our bodies so that we can change cellular function to overcome these new things that we put into the environment, these new toxins. And I'm talking things even like electromagnetic radiation that we've never experienced before.
Yeah.
If our bodies need to make new proteins to change cellular function to overcome these things, where's that information going to come from? It's not going to come from your DNA. It's got to come from somewhere
Mhm.
else. It could be that the message is in these proteins, these viral messages that are coming from other plants, other animals, bacteria, fungi, everything that's experiencing the environment. We're communicating with them and we're incorporating that information into our cells to change cellular function so that we can
Right.
adapt as a species. And
Well, when you're,
when this information is important enough, it needs to
uh
vertically transmit through the population, not
you
just
mean,
horizontally, by all of us experiencing, the measles, for
yeah,
example. You keep mentioning vitamin D,
mhm,
and I mean, that is just so critical in this
mhm,
whole thing
yeah,
because vitamin D is necessary for cytotoxic T cells to become
yep.
activated.
Activates the
It's
T cells early.
absolutely necessary.
Yep.
And, our creator designed it that way because
Yep.
you do not want activated T cells when you don't need them
Mhm,
because your immune system is going to be dysregulated and it's
mhm.
going to start killing anything and everything.
Well,
So there is a co-activation that's necessary when a T cell gets activated. And this requires a very specialized receptor on the T cell.
mhm,
And it's a CD25 receptor site. And it's vitamin D that's necessary for this to happen. And so if you don't have enough vitamin D, your T cells aren't going to get properly activated. And this is why a lot of people that didn't have optimal vitamin D levels, they had a really, really hard time with this particular infection. And they will have a hard time with any coronavirus infection because
Most
their T
infections
cells aren't properly regulated.
Well, I help Leyland by talking about soldier, like your soldiers inside are the T cells, and the invading army coming in is the virus. Antibodies are just landmines you throw on the beach. They're not a big deal. But if if your soldiers don't have bullets, like T cells don't have vitamin D, the invading army comes in, and this bioweapon had interferon turn off, so it could switch off the early warning. And would then sneak in and sneak down to the lungs before the T cells noticed. You needed the vitamin D for them to detect and raise the alarm, bring in the other T cells and abort the infection. But the planet forgot all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the doctors said no evidence.
Even though it was measured early on, there was a study done in Indonesia very, very early on. And they looked at people's vitamin D levels, and everybody that had a really low level, like less than 19.5 nanograms per milliliter, all of those people died. Every single one of them died. The people that had vitamin D levels that were above 31.5 nanograms per milliliter, which is still low, none of those people died. And the optimum level is anywhere from 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. And I encourage everyone listening to this right now, if you don't know what your vitamin D level is, go get it checked.
See, I don't.
It's not optimal. Supplement yourself. Start taking vitamin D supplements. Get out into the sunshine.
I'm screaming at everyone now. I'm doing videos like go outside as soon as the sun's above 45 degrees. Take off your top. Get sunbathing. No sunscreen. Like your life depends on it. And back then, I got Facebook banned 20 times in the first 6 months. But
I don't wear sunscreen ever. I don't. And I live in Florida. Okay. And I go out in the midday sun.
Okay, you're in Florida now. Okay, but let's talk about the psychology and the science, and what's going wrong is this. We could sit here and give the best information in one video. Everyone will watch and they won't tell other people. They won't share. They won't recommend. That's been happening since the start. Dr. John sat there at the start. The first person I found was Dr. John Campbell, Dr. Chris Martinson, both saying vitamin D. Dr. John kept saying vitamin D activates your T cells early and downregulates the inflammatory, the CD helper cells. Don't go crazy in the cytokine storm. So it's crucial. Nobody learned that. They just went, I've got my vitamin D. I was there going, the old people don't have theirs. Tell everyone. The doctors aren't telling people. Tell everyone. The conspiracy theorists are talking about 5G. So it's our job to tell everyone. And no one would do that. Everyone was self-obsessed going, I've got mine. And Dr. John didn't notice that nobody was learning the science. So the information stayed in a bubble when it should have spread through everyone's action and saved everyone. But everyone's sitting there with a sort of spell, only interested in themselves, while telling everyone how much they care. It's hypocritical behavior and a spell that is keeping these good answers from everyone joining in.
There's something going on psychologically, no doubt.
Yes. Well, I call it the dark force. It is 99.99% pervasive. Carl Sagan talked about a dark force, and then Brett Weinstein said some force is in the dark. It's so well hidden because everyone's hiding their ignorance. They won't admit it. They're all obsessed that they're right and hiding their ignorance. And if you confront them, they turn nasty and run away. And it's like they don't know they're doing it, but they're obviously doing it. And then they hate everyone else for doing it, blaming everyone. It's the doctors, it's the politicians. It's like, you're all doing it. You're doing it to yourselves, humans.
There's a problem there, and the way we overcome this is trying to educate people. And
you physically can't.
yeah, I wrote a Substack yesterday on this where, we really have to start educating children early, and
Uh-huh.
they need to understand really, really basic concepts of health and disease.
Yeah.
It's like, number one, just because you come in contact with something that's, supposedly a pathogenic organism, that doesn't mean that you're going to get any symptoms.
Yeah.
It just doesn't mean that. I mean, most of us harbor these things all of the time, and we're swapping these things between us all of the time
Yeah.
just by breathing the same air, or using
Yeah.
the same drinking glass,
Yeah.
or touching the same things. We're constantly moving these things back and forth between us all the time. And that's natural.
Yeah.
You can't stop that from
Well,
happening any more than you can
well,
stop the ocean tides, but you shouldn't be afraid of it. You should not be afraid of it, because whether or not you develop symptoms doesn't have much to do with the pathogenic organism. It has to do with the condition of your immune system and how your T
well, this,
cells are responding
yeah,
to that and bringing you in harmony with your environment. That's where it is.
exactly. That's ecology. That is real science right there.
Yeah.
Natural sciences.
And
We fear what we don't understand.
until children understand that,
Learn.
and we
Yeah.
raise a whole new generation of
Hmm.
enlightened beings, we're screwed.
Yeah. The children seem unaffected by what's happening in the world. The adults are all children, and the kids are more wise
Yeah,
than the adults are. The adults are walking around delusional, the blind leading the blind. Yes,
exactly.
natural. I very much was ecologist, outdoor forestry, living in the woods, dirty. I don't use that much soap. I don't bleach things. If I
Yeah.
meet someone who's got a cold or a flu, I go, give me an update, because
Yeah,
I
I
want to
like the
stay in this
way, yeah,
cycle.
I'm the same way.
I
I'm
save a
exactly the
fortune on
same.
products. I'm not afraid of
No.
everything. But this evil pharmakeia marketing thing has made everyone terrified of the environment and cutting us off from nature and
Yeah,
making us sicker. You're
yeah.
absolutely right.
And
The
it's still like that. People are still
Yeah.
afraid. I mean, I go to the gym, well, almost every day.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
like to work out. And so people are still wiping everything down, and somebody comes up to me and says, why aren't you wiping anything down? And I'm like, because I like to keep my immune system strong
Yeah.
and challenged. I'm challenging
Finland.
my muscles right now in the gym. I like to challenge my immune system too. You're
Yeah.
destroying that.
Yeah. The kids go out, play in the woods, get muddy. You know, you get
Yeah,
stronger. The science, the natural science, the ecology has been stolen from us for
yeah,
control. I see the doctors as this it's like empirical. Dr. Fauci, the emperor,
yeah.
stormtrooper, Order 66,
That's another
fear,
problem.
do what
That's
you
another
say,
problem. Yeah, you
but they all
nailed
sit
it.
with
You
smiles.
you nailed it. People
Yeah.
put too much faith and confidence in the white coats and the stethoscope wearers
Yeah.
instead of
And they're all
listening.
weak. I can easily show they're all delusional and wrong.
Most of them are what I call indoctrinated, uh, by how they've been educated,
Yeah.
and it was designed that way. It was designed
Yeah.
that way. They want to keep these new medical students focused on pharmaceuticals, and these things called vaccines are safe and effective, and they're
Mhm.
neither. They're neither one. Yeah, we're involved in a war, no doubt.
Yes, we are in
An
a war.
absolute war, and
Yeah.
it's not bullets and bombs. It's a silent
No.
war. It's a dark force, and it's a deception. It's a deceiver,
Yeah.
and
It is. It thrives on
people
gaslighting, deceit, and
people are
ignorance.
people are so easily deceived. And
Hmm.
this vaccinology lie is so easy to believe, so easy, and people want to believe it. Here, put this in you,
Hmm.
inject this, it'll protect you. They want to believe that, they really
What were the
do.
people? What were the people supposed to do when 99.9% of experts all said it would work and would be safe? When they were all wrong, they were supposed to
All
trust the expert.
wrong, and they
Yeah.
all lied, and they
Yeah.
knew damn well they were lying.